I guess, I started working with Wiley 12 years ago, and there's 5 books which we've done together. And I love the company dearly, and I'm very loyal to them. But at the time, they're the most frustrating organization which probably I've ever worked with. And I guess the biggest kind of challenge, or the biggest thing which I find, which perhaps they're not getting yet, is that books are about ideas, and books are brands, books are themes and ideas and concepts which are much more than the paper which they're published on, or even the digital formats which they come in. They're ideas which galvanize people, and those ideas are things which people are trying to move forwards with across the world in different types of organizations. And we've got to find different ways in which we can communicate those ideas. We're in the communication business. And we're also in the enablement business, about helping people to use those ideas, to apply them, to make them work better. And trying to revert every time ideas and the experience which we want to deliver people into 300 pages, largely driven by text, is an incredibly product-driven way of thinking. And I guess it's a product which is diminishing in terms of its attractiveness to consumers, it's diminishing its value in terms of what people will pay for it, and it's diminishing in demand in terms of how many copies are sold. So we really do have to think in a bigger way. And getting to the point where I work with an editor, is hard enough. Going through the long process of negotiation, of trying to get people convinced that this is a good idea. Then working with the editor tends to be a largely kind of mechanical process, which involves lots of outsourced people who don't really care about the content, but care about their own little bits. And if we're thinking from the user's point of view, the person who wants to use this information, these ideas, to actually do something in their workplace or in their lives, we forget how they interact with stuff. They don't read books from the beginning to end. They might not even read the book. They just want to feel as though they've got it, or they want to kind of grab a bit of it and then they want to get it in different forms. So using different platforms, be those physical events, or be they digital media, or be they videos, or be they tools, or whatever it might be, are all part of the way in which we can enable the user to do more, which is ultimately what we're trying to achieve. And I kind of feel we're not seeing that in Wiley still. And there's been a big shift towards that, but we're still hankered by the idea that we love books, or they're hankered by that idea. They're still hankered by the idea that the books have lots and lots of words, and the word count is the most important measure of quality. And, that's not sensible. That's not true. A book could be 10,000 words or 100,000 words. It's the quality of the idea which really matters. And then it's the format of the book, plus the digital, plus the activation and the physical and the location and when the book's available, which enables people to use that. The ideas have a longevity to it, which is relevant to what matters to the customer. So a lot of the time, while you're thinking, well, we launch the book and then we give it 3 months promotional push and then we forget about it. And if it doesn't succeed in 3 months or 6 months, then it's not going to succeed. Well, that's far from the truth. And if you look at companies across the world and individuals across the world, their appetite for different ideas emerges at any point. So finding ways in which we can break this launch and forget attitude to a book, I think, is as important as overcoming this kind of paper plus attitude to a book. So I guess the starting point is we need editors to be different. And editors at the moment are like production managers. Editors really need to be challenging and shaping ideas. I can bring the embryonic idea, which is rough and ready, but I need somebody to be my sounding board. The ideas are the most important thing, and we're grasping them, we're trying to connect them, we're trying to improve them, but I want somebody to work with to help me to do that. And I know editors have that in them, but most of the time they're tasked with just managing a series of interventions, which means that they're not interested in the content. And I find that disappointing, and I find that there's nobody really to be my sounding board. Authors are not really authors a lot of the time. They're people who have ideas which connect with people. They're researchers, they're speakers, they're consultants, they're trainers, they're managers in companies. And it's about understanding how can we fuse together all of those different factors. And every publisher knows that most of their authors can stand on stage for 1 hour and make more money than they'll ever make from the book. So, aren't the publishers missing out somewhere? Now, does that mean that the publisher sets up a speaker agency? Well, certainly not at the moment, because they haven't got the capabilities to do it. But if they could collaborate with the speaker agency, you start to get a different model. If you start to think about the exclusivity of what is on offer, you start to create more value. So rather than having, let's get it out to as many outlets as possible, let's start to think about exclusivity and increasing the value of the book. Instead of thinking about the book in one format for everybody and treating everybody as average. Are you average? The whole idea about treating people in different ways, the ability to have different editions, the ability to customize it one-to-one, for corporates being able to customize the book of the month, the book of the year, and being able to co-brand it, the ability to be able to create a collector's edition. If you look at Kickstarter, the way in which people are innovatively thinking about how can I offer incentives to people to add value, to create something special, means there's many more formats. The ability for Coca-Cola to print the person's name on every different bottle in a different way. Well, why can't we do that on a book now? We're supposed to be innovative in terms of printing and publishing. So that's all part of it. But then if you add to that, the digital opportunities, not just of the e-books and audiobooks, but go beyond that. How can you fuse books together? Wiley is supposed to be fantastic from the inter-science perspective in terms of how do you connect different concepts from different books together into something which is much more useful for the consumer. So thinking about how can I take bigger meta ideas and how can I bring authors together and how can I fuse concepts and fuse authors and fuse perspectives, and then I can take components of digital assets such as case studies or chapters and start to fuse them in different ways. I suddenly have this incredible wealth of stuff which I could monetize and remonetize, repackage in different forms, keep making it topical to the world, keep making it more relevant to the individual, but I can keep using that in much more powerful ways. This old adage that a book is produced and then marketed and then forgotten is ridiculous. And thinking about, therefore, how can I bring those together as digital and human assets, and how can I be the manager of that and the monetizer of that, as this brand manager, as we started, is a much more exciting vision of being a publisher. So we were talking about the music industry and, Live Nation being the company which Madonna or Jay-Z wants to sign up to, and people paying $99 to go to a live concert, but 99 cents to download a track of music. So, this fundamental shift, we should be, using in the publishing industry too. I, for example, work with a number of speaker agencies, but one of them, BCC, is the largest speaker agency in Latin America. They're based in Spain. They serve all of the Latin American market. They've said that one of their big revenue streams of the future will be publishing, and they've started now publishing their speakers' books. And they have an exclusive relationship with that speaker. They create a BCC imprint. And then when they sell the speaker to the conference organizer or to the company, these speakers, the really big names, are being sold for anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000. And so being able to sell 1,000 copies of the book as part of that package is pretty small fry in terms of the overall speaker fee, but it's something which is much more valuable to the delegates, and it's more sustaining in terms of how you can use that. So once somebody gets hold of the book, and particularly the book's more like sort of ideas plus tools for doing something about it, then they want the workshop. The workshop tends to be a 3-day, or it might be 3-day replicated in teams of 20, 30 people for hundreds of people in the company. So you get a lot of workshops out of it. The workshops then maybe become an intranet toolkit as well, so that you have a consistency of methodology inside the company. Then they want coaching, to sustain that practice over time. And then another company hears about it through peer-to-peer recommendation, and they want the same overall package. So suddenly you start, particularly because the book is providing an underlying infrastructure to this. The book is kind of the sustaining idea. Then you've got the sustaining idea and all these forms of physical activation, and that's where the money is. And that's not just 10% or 10 times better. That's something like 100 times or 1,000 times magnified in terms of the potential commercial impact you can have from one idea. So I think publishers, need to be aware that these speaker agencies and other third parties are eating their lunch, but they also need to think about, well, how could I be part of that? So it's about thinking in a very different way. And I think, we all know it's intellectual property, and we all know that the asset is the idea and the brand, and to a lesser extent the author. But thinking, how can I launch brands is what we should really be thinking about. A book is a brand. A book is a new line of fragrance, if you see the analogy. And then think about, how can I engage a tribe of people in that brand? And how can I then build that brand through various different mechanisms over a period of time also becomes important. Brands become incredibly valuable, but they don't become valuable by their quantity. They become valuable by their perceptions and how people feel about it, what people associated with it, and the emotions to do with that. And in a sense, editors and publishers need to become brand managers. They need to fundamentally rethink, what is my consumer seeking to achieve through this? What does my consumer perceive through this? How do they equate value to this brand? And then start from that outside-in perspective, rather than thinking, is it a $14.99 book or a $19.99 book, and is it 60,000 words or 80,000 words, which is really bullshit compared to what the user really wants.